Hi everyone, Kaliym Islam, the Training Pro here, and welcome to part 2 of the State of the Industry interview that Malu Schloss of Training Pros conducted with me. Now in this section, we look at the timeline required to get Agile up and running in the training organization. Now I know you'll learn a lot, so enjoy, and we'll talk soon.
So give us an idea of what the timeline was like using the previous methodology, and what you were expecting to get out of shifting to Agile.
So the previous methodologies, historically you do a big upfront analysis. You do sort of a needs analysis, audience analysis, learning analysis, and all this stuff. And you have to know everything about what you need to build before you start doing anything. And then once you have all this information, then you typically come up with some type of scope of work. And then from the scope of work, you might create some type of design document that has to be signed off by a bunch of people. And after you get the design document signed off from a bunch of people, you may build a prototype that again has to be signed off by a bunch of people. And all this takes time, 6, 8, 10 months, depending on how big the program is. And then typically what we found happen, or what happened more often than we'd like, was that we would build the program and then we'd find out that the requirements changed, that there was a new audience segment that we didn't account for in the initial analysis. And then we have to go all the way back to square one. And I can't tell you how many times I've spent a long amount of time building a training program, and by the time I got it built and approved, it was no longer relevant because all the assumptions that we made up front had changed. So what Agile allows you to do is to get started as quickly as possible with minimal documentation, so that you can start building something. So I use the term, you don't have to know everything before you can start doing anything. So
this is like the ultimate iterative process.
Absolutely, absolutely. And true iteration. So Michael Allen, who's a colleague of mine who runs Allen Interactions, came up with the Savvy process years ago. And I think it was phenomenal in terms of what it did around having training professionals think differently. But if you look at the Savvy process, it's essentially mini waterfall.
Right.
So you're doing iterations, but you're doing iterations within phases. And you may never get out of a particular phase because you're doing this iteration in let's say the analysis phase or discovery phase. You're doing iteration again and again and again and again, and you never move forward because you have this sort of sign-off or this gate that you have to pass before you go to the next phase.
And you don't release anything until it's perfect.
Absolutely,
so,
absolutely, yeah.
So, and in your previous writing, you talk about the need to execute quickly, and not to dilly-dally. So, what was the impetus to do that immediately at that time? Was there just too much deliverable and not enough time and not enough resources? And
yeah, so to some extent, so I had to be dragged kicking and screaming into Agile. It wasn't an approach that I knew about. And in fact, with my team, with my leadership team and my whole organization, we spent a bunch of time having sort of an off-site, a retreat for the staff to solidify our waterfall process. And what we found was a few things. One, it was taking too long. Number two, the staff felt overburdened by the amount of administrative overhead associated with building courses or building learning solutions. So quite frankly, we had to shift course. And one of my teams, my technology group, was headed up by a really smart guy named Marcus Smith. And he was using Agile for the technology team. And I saw a bunch of employees who I really questioned whether they were going to make it. And I saw him take that team and turn it around from an organization that, hey, maybe we should outsource this, to an organization that was giving a lot of value to the organization. So we started having some conversations about what he did and how Agile was working for that team. I brought my whole leadership team together. We had a bunch of discussions over probably about a 6-month period, and we decided to adopt it for the entire organization. So that was the impetus.
And you started with training too, or did you have Scrum Masters inside the organization at that time already?
Well, the gentleman that introduced it to us, Marcus Smith, he was a certified Scrum Master. So, and he was a team lead of my technology group. So he started using it for that team, and we just saw phenomenal results with it. And then we adopted it for the entire organization. Yeah. So let me tell you, it's phenomenal. So not just in terms of what we've been able to do around supporting our internal and external customers, but with regard to employee engagement. So my employee engagement scores last year with my training organization, now I'm embarrassed to say, but they were in the 4th quartile in the company. Probably 8-9 points below the company average on some of these indexes. Okay, within 1 year, we just got finished doing the employee survey again. We are now double digits ahead of the corporate average, and there are 9 or 10 areas that are opportunities for the company that are strengths for my team. We are 18 points above the corporate average in terms of our leadership indexes, and we're 12 points ahead of the corporate average in terms of our engagement indexes, and that's phenomenal. It's phenomenal in and of itself, but to think that we were able to make that turnaround in just a year is unbelievable.
So